Welcome to the School of Motion Graphics. My name is CM de la Vega, and we have an exciting tutorial for today. It's all about creating 3D in After Effects. It's super easy to do, and I hope you like Star Wars because we'll be using that as inspiration. Now, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and let's get started. It's pretty awesome that you can create this 3D inside of After Effects with no plugins. However, you can only use it on shape layers and text layers, and you can only extrude. So you have a couple parameters that you're limited to, but still, it's pretty great. Now, if you have a logo that is done in Illustrator, an AI file, you can convert that to a shape layer. And before we get started and recreating this Star Wars logo, I'll show you how to convert an Illustrator file into a shape layer. So we have this example, we have this logo. This is Chef Monstro, great friend of mine. He has a great Instagram channel on recipes on cooking. He and we both worked on creating this logo. We did it in Illustrator. So all we need to do is select and let's drag it into the composition icon and select the layer and go to layer, create shapes from vector layer, and automatically After Effects converts this Illustrator file, this logo, into a shape layer. And we drill down, you can see all the different groups. Each one pertains to a specific part of the logo. So that's a method that you can use to convert your Illustrator files, your logos that are done in Illustrator to a shape layer. So let's get started and let's create this. And my hope for you is by showing you how to create this, it'll inspire you and give you ideas on how to create your logo and text in 3D. So let's create a new composition. Click on the comp icon and let's call this Star Wars. And I'll make it 1920 by 1080 and I'll make it 29.97, but always choose the right frame rate for your project. And for this one, I'll make it 5 seconds long. Okay, let's go to the shape layer and select the rounded rectangle tool and let's double click. And when you double click, you create a shape layer the same size of your composition. Now make sure that the fill is set to none. The stroke will make it this color and the stroke width will make it 25 pixels. Now let's drill down to the rectangle path and we'll change the size to 1500 by 500. Now the next step is we want to create this opening right down here in the middle. And to do that, we'll add a trim path. So let's add a trim path. And if we drill down to trim path, we can play with the start and the end. And you can see that we're creating that opening. All we need to do is change the direction. So it starts at this corner, but we want to make it down here. And all we need to do, very simple, is just change the offset. And let's move it and let's make it 111. And we can change this to 8. And let's change this to 91. So right now I'm just going by eye and it looks pretty even. Okay, let's give it a simple animation. Let's make sure that we're at 0 and let's animate the start and let's go forward to 1 second long and let's put another keyframe and hit Shift F9 for easy ease in. And let's go back to the first one. What we're going to do is let's pull back and go to 91% and let's check it out. Nice, looks pretty good. Okay, let's create the text. So go to the text tool and let's type in Solo. And I'm using the Star Jedi font. And for this one, I made it 375 pixels and I changed the kerning, the space between the characters to 100. Let's put it in the middle and let's create one more text. And this one will be Star Wars. I'll make it 100 for the font size, and for the kerning, I'll reset it to 0. And let's move it right here. Okay, the next step is let's slant this, but the way that we're going to slant this is by using the skew property. Now, each of these layers has a master transform properties. However, it does not have the skew property. So what we need to do is go into the shape layer, and the shape layer has its own transform properties as well. And if we drill down, it has a skew. So we can see right there, it's a skew. Let's skew it 10. And we can go back to the master transform and let's rotate it -3. And we'll do the same thing for the text. So let's go to the text. Let's go to the master transform property. And let's change the rotation to -3. And now let's skew it. Now to skew the text, what we need to do is, let's go to the text. We need to add a per character text animator property. So where it says animate, click on it and let's add the skew. And automatically After Effects adds this group called Animator 1. And we're not going to do any animation. We're only going to use this animator group to skew it. So let's put 10. And we'll do the same thing for the solo text. Let's go to solo and click on text and let's add the skew. And the skew at 10. Perfect. And let's give it a simple animation. So let's move to frame 15. And what we'll do is we'll add another animator group. So let's go and click on text. And let's add a rotation. And let's add a scale. So you can see we have two animator groups. The first one is just for the skew. And the second one, we'll use that one to animate the text. So right now, let's set the rotation to -40. And let's scale it down. Let's scale it down to 0. And we'll use the range selector. And we'll put a keyframe for the start. Let's go forward to 115. Let's put another keyframe. And this one, we can make it easy ease in. And this first keyframe, I'm sorry, the second keyframe, let's make it 100. And let's play back. Nice. Now, if you haven't used the per character text animator or the per character text animation, it's a very powerful tool to animate the characters of your text. You can also animate, if you have several words, you can animate words or lines, and it's very powerful. And the way that it works is pretty simple. You establish which properties you want to change, you want to modify. For this example, we're modifying the scale and the rotation. You set the first value. In this case, we're setting it to -40 and at 0. So at 0%, the scale is going to be 0 and the rotation will be -40. And as we go to 100, it'll make the scale 100%. It'll make the rotation back to 0. Now let's do something similar for the Star Wars text. Very simple. Let's go in, let's go to the text, and let's just make it simple. Let's just work with opacity. And once again, it creates a second group, which is exactly what we want. And let's move it to 1 second, and let's make the opacity 0. And let's modify, let's put keyframes for the start. Let's go to 2, and let's make it 100. And let's play back. Nice. It looks pretty good. Now let's make this 3D. So what we'll do is hit Control-K to open up the composition settings, and let's go to the tab that says 3D render, and let's switch it from classic 3D to ray trace 3D. Now, the newer versions of After Effects has this 3D render tab. If you're in an older version of After Effects, it might be in advanced. So if you don't see this tab, check out the advanced tab, and there should be either a button or a drop down for the 3D render, and should allow you to switch from classic to ray traced. Now, if you have a very old version like CS5 and CS6, I don't know if CS6 has this feature, it might have, but a very old version of After Effects won't have this feature. Now, you have some disadvantages by using the ray trace 3D, and you cannot use blending modes, you cannot use track mats, you cannot use layer styles, and you cannot use mask and effects. But I'll show you a hack where you can use effects. So make sure you're in ray trace 3D. Let's hit OK. Select these layers, and let's make them 3D by activating the 3D switch. Let's create a new camera and make it 50mm. That's fine. And hit OK. Now, when we go to the shape layer and we drill down, and we see that we have this new property called geometry options, and we open that, we have different properties, and one of them is extrusion depth. Now here we can change it. We can, for example, put a value of 100, and if we rotate, it looks like it's 3D, but we're not quite sure. Now let's add a light, and let's make it a point light, and I'll make it 100 for the intensity, and we can cast shadows. And you can see that it's 3D. Let's add another light, and we'll make this second light a backlight, and I'll make it 80. I won't cast shadows, and I'll move it backwards. There you go. Move it down. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Let's do the same thing for the text. So if we go to the text, let me zoom in. Let's go to the text and drill down, and you should see geometry options. Go to the extrusion depth, and let's make it 65. And for this one, let's set the bevel style to concave, and let's make it 6 so you can see what is going on. You can see we can give this nice bevel for the text. And let's go to the Star Wars text. Same thing. Go to geometry options and bevel style. Let's switch it. And this time let's use angular. Let's make it about 50 pixels for the depth. And let's change the bevel depth to 1. Okay. So this is what we have. It's in 3D. And the cool thing about it is, since we animated the properties for the shape layer and we animated the properties of the text using the per character text animator, all the animation that we did holds up when we make it in 3D. Give it some time. It takes a while to render because you're rendering 3D. Okay, let's check it out. Nice. And you can also put keyframes for the camera. You can animate the camera. Let me show you how to add an effect. And to add an effect, you need to rasterize this. So what you need to do is you take your comp and you pre-comp it. So let's bring it into the composition icon. And basically what we're doing is we're pre-comping it. And it's rasterized. And what we can do is we can now add effects. For example, we can add a color curve. And this is really cool. Let's add a warp. For example, we can add a bulge. And we can bend it like -10. And let's play it back. And hopefully this has given you at least some inspiration and ideas of how you can transform your logo. You can transform text into 3D very easy inside of After Effects with no plugins at all. And you see the Star Wars. I might need to move that. Yeah, the Star Wars, let's see. No, yeah, move it a little bit over. Pretty cool. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you learned something new. Now, if you want to get started in the field of motion graphics, make some money, you should definitely check out the book that I wrote. It's available on Amazon, and I put a link to the book in the description below. And amigos, always remember that life is truly a gift, so make it count.